to Reggio Do. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Two Reggio Dudes. I'm Scott Gross.
I'm Grant Troutman.
And yeah, here we go.
Here we go. That was a very mellow intro.
Thanks. Yeah. You know, sometimes you gotta just tone it down a little bit.
Yeah, but I'd never realized how it actually sets me up for like my mood, you know, depending on, that was so chill. And you enter the space and
Yeah.
you know,
It's good. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe next time we'll try some like Norwegian death metal or something.
that's right.
Maybe some like Icelandic trap or something like that.
I
See
actually,
what that puts us in.
a few years ago, I heard a story on NPR about that, and I got the song, and it didn't stick in my rotation, but it was still cool to, you know, learn about that.
I was actually on when Saren was an infant, when she was in the crib, and I would just sit there with her for forever until she went to sleep.
Yeah.
I would just turn on Spotify and put my headphones in, and or I'd turn on an audiobook, and that normally would just put her to sleep.
Yeah.
After I read her like 7,000 books.
Of course.
But yeah, after a while, I was just like, I want to explore some different music, and so
Right.
Icelandic trap actually is a thing. Like,
Sure.
I was like listening to. I was like, this is interesting. All right, it was
Right.
clever. Yeah, I can't understand what they're saying, but whatever. It was rad.
And the words together seem awesome, you know? How, you know.
Yeah. What was it? There was one guy. Miera. Miera was the name of the song, and it means more.
More.
Yeah. It was like some, I don't know, some kid, some teenager. I forget his name now. Miera. Anyway, it was interesting.
It's funny how you know, words or songs in other languages like can sound so like poignant or intense, just especially if you don't know the words.
Yeah.
Like there was this one song on the Sopranos soundtrack called Piov, and he says Piov like a million times in the song.
Mhm.
I've never known what it was, and I looked up and it was rain. So he says rain a million times.
Wow.
So it's like, well, that didn't make it in the rotation either. Anyway,
Well, it's funny too, like 'cause when you're listening to music in like another language, and then you're trying to sing it. You're like, like I can remember some of what I believe are the words to
Yeah.
some of the Icelandic rap from that song, especially.
right.
But it it's interesting because when you think about like little kids, and like how they get words mixed up all the time.
Yeah.
The auditory processing issue.
Yeah.
Like I did the same thing. What was it? When I was a kid, do you remember the Great Space Coaster? Do you remember that? It was a show, and
No.
it had books, and it was the Great Space Coaster. It was awesome. But to me, it was the Frey Coaster,
Okay.
because it's just like, that's how I heard it.
Right.
It's the Frey Coaster. I didn't know it's the Great Space Coaster. But it's funny because it's a natural thing. We see it
Right.
with our kids all the time.
Yeah.
They use the wrong word, or they say something differently.
Right.
Because they're just learning. I mean, you have to have
Right.
that patience with them.
Yeah. And I think you have to hear something a lot. Like I've been a Pearl Jam fan for 30 years, and Eddie's notorious since the beginning for mumbling.
Yeah.
You know, in certain songs, it means deep fucking voice. So I know that there are still like Pearl Jam songs I've known for 30 words that I say the wrong song, the wrong word.
That's funny.
But I'm not going to change it because, you know. But it's cool when like I do hear like a live show or something and I hear the words. I'm like, yeah, because what I knew that even though I didn't understand the words,
Yeah.
I resonated with the emotion and the music.
Yeah.
And so when I find out the words, it's like, yeah, I was right.
Oh, that happened to me in college.
Yeah.
Well, what was it? My roommate Corey was like, "Hey, check out this Two Live Crew song," and I was like, "Oh, I know that song." And then like I thought I knew what they said, but then I was like, "Oh wait, that's what they're saying? Oh, that's
right.
pretty terrible. Like, that's horrible. All right, that's not making it into the rotation."
Right. I forgot about Two Live Crew.
Oh, Two Live Crew. Jeez, are they even? I wonder if they're still alive. Probably, maybe. I don't know. Anyway,
Right. No, it's
so we're having a very musical day here.
That's right.
In the lab. Yeah.
Yeah. So, So I heard on NPR today that they released the survey, the national survey of like virtual education, like how this is the first study that's been done on how the kids in the country are doing with going back to school and stuff. Now they gave a few stats that I remember, but the actual entire survey is on their website, the Department of Education, but I couldn't get on it. It was crashed like Ticketmaster.
Great.
Right, because it's very interesting, and I know there's millions and millions of parents that like want to know like what other kids are doing, what other families are experiencing.
Absolutely.
Because just with the population that we work with, 30, 40 kids, it's like just from that, like what we've heard and what we've seen, is just amazing. Like what the kids are not getting or what they have to go through or how much school they get. Like some enjoy it, some don't. So I don't know. I'm really interested to see the whole survey, but
it makes me think. It makes me think back to like a little guy that I worked with, and actually Katie worked with a long time ago, who looking at a screen was very aversive to him. He really did not like looking at a screen.
Okay.
Because I tried like a video modeling video that I made for him.
Yeah.
Like I made a custom video just for his like goals and some objectives and things that, to help him.
Yeah.
But I included all the things he loved, water, swimming, like all the stuff. And,
Yeah.
and just looking at the iPad was like, he just didn't like it.
Right.
He would smack it away and stuff. So thinking
Right.
about like virtual for someone like that,
Yeah.
I mean, you just think, gosh, the gaps between these kids, right now. I mean, I'm thinking about it for Saren for next year. She's going into first grade and she's been homeschooled all year.
Right.
I know I'm pretty much on the ball. She's gotten enough social stuff, and the academics we're handling.
Right.
She's doing well.
Right.
But it's like we're not sitting down at a desk and writing.
Right.
Like for an hour straight, or doing math problems at a table,
Right.
doing handwriting and written work. Like, and I'm really kind of worried about that for next year.
Yeah.
It's not how she learns.
Right.
And I don't know. I know she'll be fine wherever she goes, or she's a very adaptable kid, but
Right.
I mean, there are so many in the population that we work with that have been left behind, like far behind.
Yeah.
And even the kids that we don't work with, maybe there's the underserved populations, kids who just don't have access to computers, internet, electricity. Geez, you got to plug that in. Who's going to pay their electric bill, right?
That's right.
Who's going to help charge those batteries?
That's right.
Where's the help? I mean, we're getting some stimulus money, like a little bit, but
Yeah.
that's not enough for.
No, that's what they mentioned.
Did they?
A little bit. They said that.
I haven't heard the thing, so.
No, she gave highlights of it, and it was like, that's part of the consideration is like, what kind of access do the kids have? Because in the country, there's going to be a full spectrum of it. But the truth is that lots and lots and lots and millions of kids are not getting access to it or have very limited access to it. Yeah. And she mentioned kids with disabilities. It's like what information was there from it with kids with disabilities? And it was like half of them like are getting, like 50% of respondents are getting some virtual. So it's like
50% or some.
So it's like, and like we know that nothing beats one-on-one or in person, learning together,
Right.
That's in relationship, that's how we learned to be teachers. That's what we learned to value as important is like the children in relationship with different things.
Right.
And virtual makes that virtually impossible. It's unless you have like a super amazing teacher and there was some kind of bond with the class before you went into virtual, then the chances of it being successful or even valuable like drop.
Right.
So when you get to that point, when you find out that like you, as a parent, you have to be very cognizant and discerning about what kind of value there is in your child's virtual experience. And if it sucks, if they're not getting anything, then you have a choice, hopefully. I mean, maybe you have a choice to become their teacher as much as you can.
Right.
And find other avenues for them to learn outside of this.
Yeah.
You don't have to rely only on the public school system or on virtual or even private. You don't have to just buy it, you know?
Right.
Some people don't have choices. But if you do, I want parents to know that they have the confidence to become their parents, their kids'
child's
teachers,
teacher,
their child's teacher, and make sure that those gaps don't widen, that they don't fall behind, you know, that
Right.
there's a different way.
Yeah. Do you, well,
Because there has to
I'm
be.
just thinking of so many families right now. I'm just thinking of so many friends and families who have kids who are just, you know, in that moment, and like thinking about as a parent, like trying to, you know, right. You're a parent. You're not a teacher.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe you're an engineer. Maybe you work doing janitorial stuff. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Whatever you do.
Yeah.
You can in some way naturally incorporate education into the moments that you are with your kids. Maybe you're working 3 jobs. Maybe you're exhausted all the time.
Right.
I know. It's just the seconds or the minutes or whatever the time you have to devote to your children, to your child, you have to be just, I mean, and you're not like drilling them on like academic stuff, but point out things in real life that are, this is why you should learn this.
Right.
Like, okay, well, you know, we're doing numbers so that, hey, one day when you get the electric bill, you're going to know, oh, I do have enough money in my account to pay this.
Yeah.
Or what, you know?
Or if someone's like, that lollipop's $15.
Right.
No, I don't think it is.
Be like, that's not worth it.
Right.
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 So yeah, I mean, it's such a hard time right now, for families, and especially kids with special needs and families with kids with special needs.
Absolutely. They didn't mention anything about preschool age children. I mean,
terrible.
They might have missed the highlights, but we can assume it's like they were focused on like 5th and 4th graders that, you know, there's not going to be a lot of information for kids under 5. Like and before COVID, they were not a prioritized population to educate.
Absolutely.
You know, but in this situation, in this, you know, continual unfolding clusterfuck, you know, it's like, this is where Reggio really comes into play. This natural learning, relationships are the priority, gives you a structure and a direction that releases pressure for you to engage with your child. Mm-hmm. You know, because I think parents that are under pressure for work and for their children, like the pressure just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, you know, regardless of fear of COVID or, you know, traumatic, terrible things happening in people's lives. Like parents experience an incredible amount of pressure. Mm-hmm. And if you have to worry about your children falling behind and not learning and not being connected, like, I don't know how a parent in that position, like, continues. Like, that's so much weight.
Yeah.
So this is where I really believe that Reggio and this focus on the child and easing that pressure through natural learning and play and fun is the best way to get both things done. Release pressure from your parental life and your responsibilities, and make sure your kid gets educated. And you have to find out what that. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, and as a parent, you have to fight that resistance to like take it easy when you get home from work. All right, maybe give yourself 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Relax for a minute. Get off your feet.
Right.
You know, but then you got work to do.
Right.
You got to fight that resistance and get to it.
Yeah.
You know, just engage with your kids.
Yeah. It can be really hard, but like letting go and like really just, if you can, like, you know, objectify your pressure and your plate, you know, like of everything else outside of your child, like if you can learn to separate from that and detach from it just for brief moments or small amounts of time, so you can have this like authentic, stress-free connection with your child, you know, that's where natural learning takes place and cements with ease.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not great at this all the time. Like, I can do this, I'm capable of it.
Right.
But life is often stressful and fast and busy and crazy, and you can't always be in that position, that place.
Yeah.
But that's where I want to be. That's where I want to do.
Yeah. I mean, we've all got schedules, we've got complex lives, and things that we're concerned about, and things that take us away. It can take us away from our kids, mentally, and physically. But yeah, it is hard sometimes to turn it on, and just stop and listen and watch and observe, and then get in there and try to teach naturally.
Yeah. It's hard, but it's possible, and it's really the only choice. I mean, it's, and this is another thing I want parents to know, like your children are going through this in their own way, and they have so much, the children have so much weight on them, and unknown and uncertainty, and they feel this pressure, and a lot of it is mysterious. So I want parents to be super aware that, like, at this point in time, if a teacher or a school or anyone tells them that their child is failing, or that their child is somehow falling behind, or if anything negative about their child, like, this is when the parents have to step up and face and fight, like, the teachers, the schools, because the schools, like, before COVID, they had this, they reflexively put all the pressure back on the kids, back on the parents, for not having proper funding, for not focusing on mental health, for not understanding learning, like, all these government things, like they try to put the pressure back on the families. They always have. And they're still continuing to do it during COVID, which I think is criminal. Because this is a survival situation,
right?
So I really think that the parents need to know that it's okay for them to fight, and that they need to. It's like, some kids will be okay doing anything. Some kids are going to love virtual. A lot of kids don't. A lot of kids aren't. And the parents and families need to be able to say, no, this is not right. This is a hard time. We need more time. We need to do this a different way for them. Now more than ever, because the schools are going to try to put the responsibility on you, and it's a shared responsibility,
right?
So I don't know. We've just heard so many stories. I mean, so many of the kids we know, like, I mean, they're like, yeah, he gets virtual, half the week. He goes in half the week. Sometimes he has class, sometimes he doesn't. Like, this is not ideal. It's not right.
There's no consistency either.
Yeah.
And yeah, even with virtual, there's no routine. There was somewhat you can kind of implement, group meetings kind of thing. But even then it's like, it's a shit show. That's one thing with kids, that they need that routine, that predictability.
Right.
It's just been such a crazy year.
It has been.
We didn't. Yeah. I don't know. Today's been an interesting one. We're just kind of chatting today.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about virtual and all that. We didn't have too much of an agenda.
Yeah.
What are some things that you learned through virtual, working for the 6 weeks that we taught virtually? What are some things that you learned? Nothing.
No, I learned everything. I packed it away. Like, that 6 weeks of virtual was just absolute for preschoolers. It's
kind of traumatic, yeah.
It's insane, But, like, I had a great teaching team, and there was tons of collaboration, and it's like we all wanted to do it. Like, we were all in,
Yeah.
And so we came up with a structure, but we had 7 months with our class,
right? That's
in
the thing.
school.
Yeah, you've already built that relationship.
So we had that, But and it was amazing. It really, really was amazing to, like, because we love our class, and we had to go virtual. So to stay connected. And, we tried different things at the beginning. We tried videos. We tried, we made a lot of content, a lot of stuff. The kids had a lot. But what they needed, what the most important thing was to see us every day.
Yeah.
So it's like, and one of the things on the NPR thing was how, they don't really know like what they're doing at home. They don't know if they're doing packets at home. That could be considered, like out of school learning, it's like, or doing software on computers. It's like,
right.
You don't know.
True.
But we found out and knew that like having us all together virtually, we were able to still grow as a class. We could still see relationships forming. You could still, like, the kids adapted and evolved to our virtual format because all of us were there, making sure that happened, because that was the most important thing, and we tried to come up with fun stuff to do and different things that we could do together individually, like in our homes. I mean, what an opportunity to be creative as a teacher, and we were super successful. Like all of our kids were there almost all the time for 6 weeks.
That's great.
It's exhausting,
Yeah.
And we learned to streamline the process. But for preschoolers, it was really hard. But I imagine that it could be easier with older kids, if they have an engaging teacher with interesting subject material.
Right.
Do
you think that schools, let's say public schools, kids coming in, like Sarah and like my daughter, coming in, going in from their kindergarten year homeschooled with me, and then going into first grade or whatever grade they're going into, do you think it would be, I don't know, do you think that the schools will implement some kind of like assessment at the beginning of the year to just see like, all right, where's everybody at?
Yeah.
And I think they kind of do that, but I mean, it's a little more standardized, but
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean,
there's gonna be a lot of early intervention programs. There's a lot of EIP teachers that are gonna be needed,
right?
Because there's gonna be some kids a lot of kids are gonna need to catch up.
Yeah.
God, imagine if your English isn't your first language,
right?
And you've gone through this, and now you got to go into school, and you're like, whoa, what? I don't understand anybody.
Yeah.
Especially even virtually. I mean, another language sounds different through a computer.
Yeah.
It's not like hearing it straight, like, one-on-one.
Yeah.
The language acquisition must be just, I don't know, that's got to be incredibly hard during this time.
Sure. You take your typical kid who speaks English, has average, or does fine in school.
Right.
Like, they may or may not do well in virtual. Like, it just depends on the situation. But whatever barrier you add to that, the possibilities of doing well drop, most likely. But also just like the weight that these kids are like having to deal with, like the pressure. It's not like a pressure, like we've all dealt with varying levels of pressure, like in high school and like getting into college and like tests and shit. But like, I can't imagine the pressure now. Like what the pressure feels like for kids now.
Yeah.
It must be just absolutely immense.
Going back to our musical intro talk, thinking about English language learners.
Yeah.
And hearing language through a computer or through headphones, they might get mixed up.
Right.
They might not get the right words. They might,
So back to the thing. So it's like, if it's a law that like public schools have to provide the least restrictive environment,
right?
They were trying to figure that out before, and like it was manipulated and argued, and like when it's just like, give the kids what they need to learn. Any kid, wherever they are, give them the environment that's least restrictive for them to learn, to become a whole person. So that was before. So now with COVID, it's like,
I hate that term though, by the way.
What?
Least restrictive environment.
Oh,
I don't know.
Don't get me started on disabled and handicapped. I mean, like, are you kidding? I mean, people don't, like, we were talking about advertising a lot. Like, if you see the word disabled, if you see the word handicapped, if you see a wheelchair, like, a certain percentage of the population is going to assume certain things.
Right.
You know, so it's like, I mean, it's so much shit needs to change.
You know the origin of handicapped, right? Of the term.
Please
Is
enlighten me.
people who, I don't know, someone who had their hand, had a cap in their hand and was begging for money
Oh, that's great.
on the road.
See, it's terrible. That's just awful.
Terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can assume it was awful, and yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I just, we can't assign labels to anybody who.
Just say accessible.
Yeah. I mean,
Accessible parking.
right.
Like, that's all it is. It's not handicap parking.
There you go.
Just come on, people.
Right. Because that's how people that's how easily, if you see, that's what advertising is. It's like if you see a giant glistening bacon cheeseburger on a billboard, a certain percentage of the people that pass that billboard are going to go get that burger.
Yeah.
Just because of the power of suggestion. The same thing needs to be applied to children and people, but we take away the negative things. We make them seem more like real people, because and the ones that care about that, we're trying to protect the vulnerable ones from the ones that don't have that kind of mentality.
Right.
So anyway, they do need to do something. They need to the least restrictive environment for all kids is just a shitload more patience and time for every single child in America that's experiencing education.
Right.
And I don't know what that looks like. It looks like a bunch of different things.
It looks like inclusion.
It looks like inclusion. That's exactly what it looks like. Wait, it already exists.
Yeah.
Thanks,
but
Scott.
Not so much.
But in Italy, it does.
Yes.
I mean, and it does in different places in the country. Not many.
Inclusion is inclusion. Like, it's not part-time.
Right.
I mean,
yeah. It's
not the real world.
It's absolute. Absolute inclusion is good for everybody.
Totally.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what it is. How can the public school system be more inclusive to children? I mean, why do we have to ask these questions? They spend billions of dollars. I mean, the education in the country is second only to the military in spending, I think.
Is that true? Is that right?
Look at it.
I have to look that one up.
I've looked it up before.
Okay.
But shit changes. But
Yeah.
It's maybe in Georgia.
Because I would think it would be much less.
Well, no, the gap between military and education is significant.
Got it. Okay. Yes.
But it's still, which is even worse because you would want it to be lower on the list because then things might make sense. If 50 states only get $75 billion,
Yeah. It's not surprising.
Right.
Then.
So basically, you're just going to have to empower yourself. I mean, we talk about this all the time. We want to empower children, and the way to empower them is empowering yourself, either if you have children or you work with children,
right.
Okay. And because, you can't look for external sources for help, or you can, and, God might bless you with those people in your life and those paths, and that will happen. But it needs to happen on a massive scale.
Mm-hmm.
The people in power need to actually provide these paths, and stop creating barriers and blocks and really, really focus on how do we get these children connected to learning. Mm-hmm. That's how you avoid these deficits. If you have children that love to learn and a educational system infrastructure that's their priority and intention, then they could handle something like this. They could handle COVID. They could handle anything if that was the relationship between children and the people that provide the education in the country. But it's not, and they're still trying to figure out. It's just it's like the kids always get what's left over. Right. They get the scraps. They
should be the ones served first.
They should. And they have to stop putting the pressure on the parents and trying to get the parents to be I should have done more. I can't do this, because then they just crush. You get crushed under that weight, So it's very freeing to not be reliant on outside sources. It's scary as shit, but I know that if I needed to, I guess I am. I mean, Katie and I are faiths sole educational providers. It's like we determine, what are the best choices for her right now. And we're not relying on anything external,
Right.
And we can do that right now. And that's really great. So we can find a path for her so she doesn't get left behind. And so she still gets socialization. She still gets exposure to academics. I don't know.
It sounds like you guys are doing exactly what you should be doing. I mean, that's academics and socialization
Yeah.
at 3-4 years old
Yeah.
is super important. Socialization, number one.
Yeah.
Emotional regulation.
Mm-hmm.
Man. Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
It's almost 4.
Is it? Pretty much. Yeah, it's 4:03. Oh, we lost a camera. Okay, we'll wrap it up just
Awesome.
there. That's been fun.
Nice.
Little quick one here for you guys.
Right.
All right. Well, everybody keep it real.
That's right.
Do your best. You're doing amazing.
Yeah, that's right.
Keep it up.
That's right. You're all rock stars.
Yes. Just keep showing those kiddos love.
That's right.
All right. And yeah, don't forget, check us out, www.awakeneducationllc.com.
That's right.
And Two Reggio Dudes on YouTube. And we're also on wherever you get your podcasts. All right, everyone. Keep it real.
Bye, everybody.
See you. Two Reggio Dudes.